Welcome to EntreProgrammers Podcast, the podcast for developreneurs, the podcast where you get to be a fly on the wall listening to real conversations of three developers trying to tackle the challenges they face as entrepreneurs.
All right, we're live.
Yay!
And I'm alive.
You are alive.
Yes, I was in Vegas last week. Very, very fun. Or this last weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I was at Mandalay Bay just before the whole shit went down.
Oh, wow.
Like 10 minutes before it went down. So I had to run for it. I didn't know what I was running for, actually, when I first started running. And then piecing together pieces of it. Like, people were like, oh, there's a shooter coming this way. I'm like, wow, I better fucking run then, I guess. So yeah, it was pretty nuts. Pretty crazy.
That's crazy. My brother was driving back from LA. He went down to see the Eagles game with his wife, and they got off the freeway. They were going to get off at that exit, and I think they wound up getting off at the previous exit or the next exit. Yeah. But yeah, he was, and it was right that when he was shooting.
Oh, yeah.
And so he basically, my brother, he checked in on Facebook. I'm okay. And I mean, it was kind of nutty. If he had gotten off at that exit, he would have gotten off right in the middle of that mess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had just literally come out of a real estate meeting with Grant Cardone and I left early. Like, there were still a lot of people that were at the mixer there, and they got stuck. They had to get moved to a different room in the hotel, and then had to lay on the ground and for 7 hours.
Wow.
So, but I came down from the hotel and walked over, just past the country concert, right? And just about right after that, that's when it started. I was in the MGM Grand foyer, and people just started fucking running in the door. It was crazy. It was just insane. And at first I was like, what is this? Some kind of a scavenger hunt?
Right.
And then I noticed that it was obviously people were panicking and stuff. And so I asked someone, and they said, oh, there's a guy shooting. He's coming this way. There's a shooter, going to the casinos. And I was like, oh crap. So I was trying to figure out, it's interesting too, because you wonder what you'll do in that kind of situation and what you'll think, and will you just piss your pants, or what will happen? And I wasn't really scared. My adrenaline was pumping. My very first thought was, I wish I had a gun, because then I'd run the other way, which was interesting. I never felt before that I needed a gun, but there I was I really want a gun right now. So that was kind of interesting. But without a gun, I was yeah, I think I'm going to run the other way, run away from the shooter. So then when I started running, I was sort of jog running as I was going through the casino, and I was thinking what do I go up to my room? Is that good? Because obviously someone's not going to be able to systematically go through every single room in a several thousand room casino or hotel. But then I thought, I'll be trapped there. That would kind of suck. So then I'm thinking, okay, do I break into one of the stores inside the casino and hide out there? That's probably a good spot. But again, you get stuck there. Not quite the best. So I figured, okay, well, I don't hear gunshots where I'm at right now. So it's probably not I probably have plenty of time to run outside the door and get into the street where, but then I didn't know, is this a coordinated attack? Are there multiple shooters coming from different directions, right? Is this some kind of, super big terrorist attack, right? That's always a possibility. So I was I don't know if the street is necessarily safe, but I ended up running down the street. I was actually with someone who I'm coaching. How's this for come and do some coaching with me? And he just arrived, right? And I also invited a friend of mine from here, Manny, who was supposed to meet us. So, they're both in Las Vegas on that night because I had invited them.
Oh my goodness.
And so we started running down, and we ran, halfway to the Wynn. And then there was an Uber that the Uber app wasn't working, obviously, because it was just shitstorm. So, but there was I saw this guy, staying outside of his car, and I was like, hey, I'll give you $10 if you just drive us to the Wynn. So I got an unofficial Uber ride to the Wynn, and then we basically hung out in the Wynn until we couldn't get into the hotel room until like 5 or 6 a.m. So yeah.
Were you staying at the Wynn?
I was staying at the MGM.
Okay.
Yeah. So I figured the Wynn was probably the safest place because everything was like at the other end of
right,
and the Wynn is at the end of the strip. So like if shit's going down and they're like, first we were hearing reports, we didn't see anything on the news. We were hearing stuff on Twitter. People were saying that multiple casinos were being hit and that they were working their way through the casinos. And I still don't know like why those reports were coming out, because multiple people said that on Twitter, but maybe it was just people were panicking through multiple casinos. I'm not entirely sure.
They probably heard gunshots down the street, and that's the only thing they could think of.
Yeah, I mean, something definitely is up with like what the news is reporting. It doesn't match my experience, but but I figured that the Wynn would be like, you know, the best place. So everything was on super lockdown. It was kind of crazy, but
yeah. Wow.
But the guy who was coaching, he was like, "This is awesome." He's like, "I get to hang out all night with John Sonmez. This is so awesome." I'm like, "All right."
Wait till you get my bill.
Like, yeah, exactly. I'm not thinking this is like so awesome right now, but I get it. Okay, I feel you. All right.
What was the hotel? What were the hotels we stayed in for MicroConf? The one was off the
that
strip,
was Tropicana, right? And Tropicana is kind of across the street from Mandalay.
Yeah. And then Rio. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Rio's off the strip. It's a little further away.
Yeah.
I end up going to Rio.
I remember looking out the window at Mandalay Bay, and the one that looks like a pyramid, is that the Luxor?
That's the Luxor.
Yeah, the Luxor.
Yeah, Luxor's right across the street from Trop, and then right next to it's Mandalay.
Yep.
So we walked through that. That was one of the ones we would walk through, and we'd do the big circuit to get down to the strip, right?
No, we walked over by was it Circus? And then New York.
Oh, okay.
Because the bridge directly to MGM Grand was closed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which it still is. Yep. It's crazy, but yeah, it was pretty nuts. Yeah, and then it sort of kind of ruined the plan. I had some coaching lined up and stuff too, and so it was a little bit of a challenge. And then like on Monday night, we ended up going to the Rio, to the Voodoo Lounge there, and there was this crazy. It was weird because there were like almost all the clubs and everything was closed down. The Rio was the only one that was open, and so
yeah.
Then this drunk British chick kept coming up to me, and she was like, "You I like your hair." And I'm like, "All right, that's cool. What's your name?" And she's like, "You're like a 9.5." I was like, "Okay." She's like, "I like your jawline." Like, all right, cool. But yeah, it was pretty good. And she just kept on hanging. Like, I'm just like, you know, I'm basically acting like that, just responding like that, not giving her like any lick of encouragement. But you know, she kept on going around, and then she'd come back and she'd make some other comment or something. It's like,
you know what, John? I like your hair too.
I know, I like my hair too. So. But it was crazy. Yeah, it was funny though, because I had to like a few people that had taken me up on the coaching stuff, and it was interesting with everything going down. I mean, before then it was much better, but it was a little bit weird afterwards. So
yeah,
but I survived, and that's it. Got a new. But it's crazy to be at like ground zero of the biggest modern mass shooting in history. Like, so there you go. Or at least in U.S. history.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about it until like 3 or 4 o'clock the next day on Monday, because I typically avoid the news and stuff. And then my wife she does too, but she happened to hear about it on the radio, and she was like, "Is John okay?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Didn't you hear about Las Vegas?" And so, Yeah. So then I realized, oh gosh, I've been like just bombarding John with like all this triviality all morning. he's probably like, what a jerk. And I was like, holy cow, are you okay? So
Yeah, it was weird because I was trying to figure out like who to contact too. It's like I didn't want to freak people out, but I had to contact them before the news, especially like when it first happened. I was like, I don't even know if I'm safe, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting there in the wind and I'm checking news sites. There's no report. Like there is a news blackout for like an hour, and then people are saying there's coordinated attacks and there's multiple shooters, and there was like weird, So I was like, I don't even want to like call people or text people, because I can't even say what's going on. So they're just going to freak out all night. Right. But then I was like, when I got back to my hotel room at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., I was like, all right, I should probably make some calls now or text, because if people wake up, I'm about to go to sleep. And if people wake up and then they see the news and then they haven't heard from me, then they're going to be freaking out. So,
yeah. Crazy.
But aside from that, it was a pretty good. The conference was pretty damn awesome. The Thrive conference, it was really good. Like, got to meet a lot of people. Got to meet Grant Cardone, like I said, and I'm supposed to do an interview with him. And got to meet like Tom Billio, the guy the CEO of Quest Nutrition, Ty Lopez. Tucker Max, I got to meet him. He was there. And trying to think, there's like a bunch of Sean T was there, and like Les Brown was there, which was pretty awesome. And I'm trying to think, there's just like a ton of really good speakers. It was a single track conference, which was really I prefer that actually. So everyone's in the same room, and made a lot of good. It was totally worth the price. So.
Cool.
And I'm going back to Mandalay Bay in February for Grant Cardone's 10X conference.
Oh, wow.
I got a deal on tickets for that. So
I'm going to be driving past Mandalay Bay for a week in January for CES.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I've already booked you have to book your lodging like freaking early because everything sells out.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
that's huge.
You can still get hotel rooms, but they're like $600 or $700 a night.
Oh gosh.
During CES.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went on VRBO and I found a condo, and I think it cost me like $250 for the whole week.
Oh wow, that's not bad at all. Yeah.
I was like, sweet. So yeah, that worked out pretty well. But yeah. And I was at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center for VMworld in August, so not that long ago. So yeah, they're talking about what was happening, and I can just kind of see it in my head because I can see where all of the stuff is.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, well, it sounds like your week was more eventful than mine. Of course, I did what I'm good at, and what I'm good at talking about on the show. You want to guess what that is? I fired some people.
Oh, yes. All right.
So I think I told you a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you were on, John, but I hired a project manager.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
And after he disappeared for a week, I fired a project manager. And it was funny because I sent him a message, and I'm like, dude, what's going on? And then I had him, I'd hired him over Upwork, and so then all of a sudden I see the activity go whoop on Upwork, and I'm like, okay, I'm calling this one, bullshit. And so I just got a hold of him, and I'm like, yeah, we're done. Oh, but I was sick in bed all week last week. I'm really sorry. And I'm just like, sorry.
Yeah. Email, you could send an email, tell me what's going on. Yeah.
Well, I told him that, and he's like, yeah, but I was in bed. I couldn't even get out of bed. And I'm just like, I have one of these funny devices here that I take everywhere with me, including my bed. And it fits in my hand, and it, you're in Costa Rica, so maybe a phone call wouldn't have worked, but just about anything else would have.
Right.
And so and then yeah, I'm not done firing people. So I have the guy in Philippines that's kind of been on again, off again, working for me, and I've been feeling good about him and then not good about him and good about him and not good about him. And so John sent me one of the reports that I think it's Rodrigo, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
One of your folks sends every Friday, and hey, this is what I did. And I asked him for one of those every week for like 4 weeks. And finally I was like, I'm done. Bye. And I fired him too.
Good. Yeah.
And so yeah. So anyway, my staff consists of me and Eric editing the podcast, and that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And anyway, so I decided I do need help managing the sponsorships for the shows.
Yeah.
And so I hired somebody who will actually just get it all done exactly how I want. I have to do a little bit of testing. I have to make sure that, everything is going the way that I want it to. But I know that once I have it down, Rails will do exactly what I want it to.
Yeah. Except for when Rails is sick.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can set Rails up to call me when it's calling in sick.
That's true.
So yeah. So anyway, I went to lunch with a friend of mine. He does Code Sponsor. I don't know if you're Code Sponsor, codesponsor.io. They're kind of new, but they embed text ads into readmes on like GitHub and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
And then the open source contributors get 50% of the ad income.
Okay.
And so it's his way of supporting open source and freeing himself up to, help more open source folks. And so
freaking entrepreneurs, now they're even corrupting open source software.
I know, right?
Money off of it. Like they ruin everything.
Anyway, so he took me aside and he's been talking to sponsors, including some of my past sponsors. And he's like, dude, I talked to this company and this company and this company. And he's like, why they don't sponsor you anymore, right? And I'm like, I'm guessing you're gonna tell me. And he did, and it was very enlightening. A few of the things that he brought up, I mean, I'm just sitting there going, why didn't they tell me? And one of the things really pissed me off.
Okay.
So the one thing that pissed me off is that there's a group out there called Syndicate Ads, and they're owned by some other ad company. I can't remember. It's one of the bigger ones, like Buy Sell Ads or something. I don't remember who it is. And I don't think it's them. I think it's somebody else. But anyway, so they have advertisers buy advertisement through them, and then they pick up like 2 or 3 or 4 episodes, and then I'll put them on the show.
Right.
And this advertiser had advertised directly with me in the past. He thought that I had hired an agency to line up the sponsorships when he saw me on Syndicate Ads. So he went on there, and I mean, part of this is my fault and part of it isn't. Part of it is Syndicate Ads. But what wound up happening was he went, after the episode had been released, he went to find the episode and listen to the ad, right?
Yep.
And so the part of it that's my fault is that I have my Ruby story and Ruby Rogues, or it might have been JavaScript, my JavaScript story and JavaScript Jabber, basically under JavaScript Jabber on the website. I haven't separated them out yet. One's a spin-off of the other, but I haven't spun it all the way off on the website because I wanted to get like header art and stuff, and I think I'm just going to spin it off anyway and get the header art done later, so there's less confusion. But he went and listened to the My Ruby story instead of the Ruby Rogues episode that he had sponsored. And so when he listened through the whole thing and he didn't hear his ad, he contacted Syndicate Ads and said, hey, it's not in there. And so I got back to Syndicate Ads and I said, it is in there. He sponsored Ruby Rogues. This is the Ruby Rogues episode from this week. This is the timestamp where his ad is. So let him know, because I had to communicate through them. They don't give me direct access to the advertiser.
Right.
And so anyway, they never passed that word back along.
Oh, great. Yeah, that sucks.
The only thing that they did, because he canceled the other 2 things, and so he was ticked because he's like, I paid for the spots and I never got them.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, I'd be ticked too, but he got the spots. He got the ads in the show. And anyway, so they never passed that word back along to him. They just released the funds so that I could get paid for the ads that I put up. And so I got paid, but anyway, so the whole thing's kind of sucky. But the other thing is that so the like rotating the banners and stuff every week, I've had to do that by hand, and I haven't been super consistent about that. Has been one of the problems. And then the other issue was he didn't like the way that I read their ad. You know, he said I sounded kind of monotone or bored or maybe asleep, which is good feedback for me, right? I mean, the next time I record an ad, I'm like, "Hey, everybody, check it out."
You sound like Bulldog or Mad Dog.
Yeah, I'm not going to be that much, but I am going to try and be more animated. I'm also going to be trying and be more animated on the show. This week has been so interesting. But anyway, so
I think go with the sexy voice. I think go, hey,
developers. For
What's
listeners of the, yeah, I get the music in the background. Yeah, the drum rhythm or whatever. Anyway, or the drum machine. Yeah. Do you want to get down with your servers? Anyway, so yeah, so I'm gonna try and be a little more animated in the ad reads and just be like, hey, you know, go check it out, you know, and be excited about their stuff, because I have great sponsors, they have great products, and to be perfectly honest, I had kind of lost passion for a lot of the stuff I was doing, and I was doing it because that's what I do.
Right.
And so that's part of what was interesting about this week. But the other thing is, you know, it was kind of a wake-up call too, because I'm like, look, I really like these people. I like the sponsors. I like what I'm doing. You know, I'm pretty lucky to be doing what I'm doing. And so it kind of brought me back around to that. So that was useful. But, you know, the other thing is that I'm like, well, you know, if I had a good way to do it, I could have sent them the ad read, and then they could have reviewed it and said, dude, you sound like you're asleep. Okay, well, how's this, right? And so I can get that back and forth. The other thing is that I've had sponsors, they get 3 episodes into their sponsorship, and then they're like, you know, we're not, you know, that's last year's messaging and this is this year's messaging, or we you know, we don't like the way that you phrased this or that. And so yeah, if I can work through it with them and just say, okay, you've bought the sponsorship, you know, give me the talking points, you know, upload the banners, and just make it all automatic, then a lot of these problems go away. And then as far as like rotating the ads, what I want to do is I want to set it up so that it goes to, you know, domain.com/path to banner1.jpg or banner1.png. And so when the new episode is scheduled to be released, then banner 1 just changes to whoever sponsor number 1 is automatically for me. And so I don't have to do any of that work. It just does the right thing and make sure the right sponsors are on the episode. And so, and he looked at me, this was the other thing, is like 2 or 3 of these sponsors all said, you know, if he had some system that just took care of a lot of this, we'd come back.
Right.
And so, anyway, I'm getting this feedback and I'm pulling it all together. And so at this point, I have a page in front of me that it lists the upcoming podcast episodes with their scheduled publish dates. And then it shows who the sponsors are in each of the sponsorship spots. And then if it's an empty spot, it has a button that just says sponsor this episode, and it adds it to their order, and then they can just pay it. And then it starts the whole process of, hey, this is what we need, put it in. Hey, your sponsorship's coming up, put it in, you know.
Yeah.
And that way I can just work through it that way.
One other thing I'll throw at you too is that when I've talked to sponsors, one of the big pet peeves that they have is the lack of like reporting and transparency, like, and communication coming back from the people that they're sponsoring. So if you could come up with a way to automate,
I would love to
pull in like listens, you know, download stats, and let them know when their episodes get published and stuff, and have like a dashboard for them, that would be killer.
Yeah. See, the issue I have there, I want to do that. The issue I have is that people typically use something like Libsyn or Blueberry to track their podcast stats.
Right.
And that's great, except for one thing, and that is that they don't have APIs. So if I wrote a library that would go get that information, they would have to put in their username and password. I would have to store that in my system, and then I would essentially have to log in a headless browser and screen scrape it.
Okay.
Or the podcaster could remember to go upload a CSV every week.
Right.
And so
and some of these shows are not like they're not on your account, right? So
yeah, so I do all the hosting for all the shows for devchat.tv, so that wouldn't be terribly hard. I would just have to set up my own tracking server, right? And so I'd have to set up my own tracking system. And I know a guy that's built that, as you pointed out last time, Josh. But you know, it's just another level of things that I would love to send them a report every week. Hey, this episode came out on Tuesday. We know that or came out last Tuesday, and now it's this Tuesday. We know that most downloads happen within the first 96 hours. Like the vast majority, like 80% or more, usually with podcasts, happen within the first 96 hours. So this is likely a good chunk of the exposure you're going to get. And then we'll just keep updating you on the totals and the weekly totals for anything over the last 6 weeks. And so then they can see, okay, this is the level of exposure we got. This is the, and, if they only sponsor for 6 weeks, then eventually it'll just tail off, right? And, they'll get a report, that on that 6th week after the 6th week that says, you know what, you had an episode released 6 weeks ago. Here are here are kind of the final stats. If you want to log into your dashboard, you can get more numbers after this. And just make that available, because I would love to do that and allow them to kind of see, okay, this is the kind of engagement we got, and then from there this is kind of how things went from there. So this is, and just help them track their funnel that way. This is how many clicks we got on the banners. This is how many, this is how many times the banner was shown. This is how many, and that way they can really get a feel for how that all kind of ties together, and then they can say, okay, so if I'm sponsoring this podcast episode at $1,000 a pop, and I'm reaching, I don't know, 50,000 developers or 25,000 developers or something like that, or 2,500 developers, let's say, right? So anyway, so you work that out, and then they can kind of see how it breaks down as far as the the actual exposure,
right?
And then the other thing I'd like to build into this, because I get asked for it a lot by podcast sponsors, is they want information on the audience profile. Like, who is it? Where are they? Blah, 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 right? And so I can pull some of those stats if I'm tracking the traffic. I mean, but this is a whole nother project to add to this. And that's kind of the issue that I have, is that I don't know if I think it would pay off in the long term, and I think this is actually something I can market as a SaaS product. And the other thing is I can also turn this around, because I've got a handful of people who want me to find sponsors for their shows, and so I could just represent them, put them on this platform, add myself to their account as a manager, and then go out and find sponsors for them. And then just, but they'd have to do some of the work to convert their system to do the tracking and things like that. And I think as I get more income off of it, either from people using the tool to set up their own sponsors, or from kind of running an agency alongside the podcast business, then I can kick it into more of the tracking and numbers and stuff. But the other thing I'd really love to do, honestly, is sometimes I want to see how things are going on my phone, and nobody offers that.
Yeah.
And so, especially for the sponsors, it's like, well, how's our marketing going? And so they just pull up the podcast stats app, and they go, okay, well, we sponsored this episode and it's been out for, 3 days, and this is the number of downloads we've been getting. And, you can kind of see the whole thing, right?
Right.
So anyway, but for right now, I just wanted something that was really simple, that was really simple to use, not necessarily to build. Some of this has been kind of hairy, but where they can just, I want to sponsor this episode and this episode and this episode, so they just click where they're going to click. The other thing is that then I don't have to play the game of, okay, well, this episode you were in the first spot, and that episode you were in the third spot. They know because they ordered it, right? And they just pay more to be in the first spot. And so if somebody comes in and cleans out all of the pre-roll spots, then go buy the mid-rolls.
I'm going to buy 4 pre-roll slots on the same episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. You claim it, and then it'll just put your company or product name in there. And then and I don't know if most of the sponsors don't care, because somebody's going to listen to the podcast, they're going to know that they're sponsoring anyway. Right. But like I had a company come to me, a hosting company come to me and say, hey, we want to come back as a sponsor. And I've had a few of them sponsor, so you can probably figure out it's one of like 3 companies. But they came back and they said, hey, we want to sponsor. And I said, that's fine, but Linode has sponsored everything through the end of the year. I said, so, I'm making you aware that they're sponsoring their server offering. So if you're going to sponsor on behalf of something else, because they wanted to do like object storage or something, which is kind of like Amazon's S3. And so I'm like, if you want to do that and we're not going to confuse the messages, I said I might be willing to work that out, but I have to talk to them too. And then the other thing is that I was like, people know that you do server hosting. So, I don't know if it's going to help you or hurt you. And they were like, yeah, let us know when Linode's not sponsoring anymore, or if you start any new shows, and you want to give us first crack at it. So that also helps a little bit, because they can just come in and they can go, oh, Linode's sponsoring and they do what we do. So, we don't want to diminish the returns that we would get.
You have to be there. You have to be there. It's like Honda opened up a car dealership on this street. So yeah, so Toyota, you need to be there, right? That's how I would tell it like that. Like honestly, like, do you want to just have them have the full reign? No, you have to be in there representing. It should actually be better. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one way to think of, you're not going to get as many returns when you have a competing sponsor, but you're also going to be playing defense by preventing it just from their message going out and them seeming to be the dominant. I mean, and you see it all the time, right? I know this is a sound economic concept because, like I said, car dealerships, when one car dealership opens on the street, you can bet their competitor is opening right next to them. Yeah, because you have to represent there. You can't be so yeah. So you might try that angle actually.
Maybe. I mean, I just gave them the option. I'm like, look, this is what their sponsorship is. Do you want to be on the same episode? And they said no. And I just let them know that they were there. But yeah. I don't know. I don't make any guarantees of exclusivity. I did that with Hired a few times, but I basically said, if you want the exclusivity, you have to sponsor every episode, right?
Yeah, right.
You have to sponsor 12 episodes, and then you'll get exclusivity for those 12 episodes, And what they were worried about was, I think it was Indeed came up with an offering very similar to theirs, and was offering like a higher bonus or something. And so Indeed was coming in and sponsoring podcasts as well, and they were worried that I was going to pick them up as a sponsor on the same show. And I want to make it a good listener experience. And if you're both advertising the same thing, I think people will get confused between the offers, and I don't really want that.
Especially if you gin up the excitement level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Hired is the best ever. Indeed.
Yeah.
Go with Indeed.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I'm working on now. And I'm probably going to be working on it for most of the day. I would kind of like to get something up that sponsors can go to, because I have a few people who are talking about sponsoring, and I'm just, I'd also like to go to some of these past sponsors and just say, hey, look, I know I screwed up. here's a $1,000 credit, go pick the episodes you want and we'll just give it to you. Right.
Right.
And then just let them know, look, you're kind of testing this system at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, just let them know. Yeah. So you're helping me out, but you get free advertising at the same time. So
Sweet.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting to see where it all goes, but yeah.
Well, building. I mean, this software, to me, this is a smart investment because this is like your core business.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's funny because I have expected you guys to say, "Don't build a SaaS."
No, well, no. This is like I'm blanking on the term right now, but this is like basically taking your knowledge and your system and baking it into software.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not anyone buys it, it's like your secret sauce.
Yeah.
And it helps you.
Yeah.
It's your IP. You're basically turning it into software. Whether you end up selling it or not is sort of irrelevant. Like if it's gonna, and that's why I mentioned the reporting thing. I think the reporting would dramatically help you improve your retention. So,
I completely agree.
So if you build all that in there, like you have a pretty unbeatable, and it's not something that can be duplicated. So you've got a podcast network that's not easily duplicated, and a system for turning that into money that's not easily duplicated,
and a sponsorship system. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. And if I mean, long term, you could even potentially use this like having a lot of the editing and stuff happening through this app might also make it easier to do reporting and status, like keep the sponsors. You could use it for workflow management, basically.
Yeah,
something like Asana or something.
Yeah, I thought about that too. Just workflow management. I thought about the stats tracking. I've thought about opening up some kind of like email subscription piece to this. That because right now I do it through Drip, and I kind of had to plug a few things in together. But something like this, where your sponsorship stuffs are all tied in, then it would just, hey, here's the next episode, and it it just bakes the sponsorship stuff in and stuff like that. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways that this could go. So but one thing at a time.
Yep. Yeah, but no, I think this makes sense to focus on because it's the core of your business. So it's not some SaaS idea that you had.
Right. No, it's not. It came out of, it came out of, hey, if you do this, you will get business. And if you do this, like just looking at this, I mean, the amount of time that I have spent trying to get people to do this versus the amount of time that I've spent working on this, like it doesn't even compare. I've spent way, way, way more time trying to make people do this the way that I need it done. And I don't get anywhere close. So I feel like this is just an investment that I need to manage. But then the other thing is that it also makes it easier to automate the sales and things, because I just say, hey, look, you can go check out our availability at this page. You can sign up for the episode spots you want. If you have any questions, I'm happy to set up a sales call. And, beyond that, we can just make it work.
Yeah, I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I think that it's saving you money and time, and then you have the upside of potentially selling it. So, and most of the good, like really good tools, a lot of the good SaaS products are things that were first created to solve the owner's problem first, right? So,
yeah, that's the other thing I figure is that somebody could come in and say, hey, I do my podcast a little bit different. How much work would it be to add this? And it's like, oh, no, it'd be bad, and so, yeah. But yeah, the other thing is that I keep finding gems that do like 90% of the work that I need.
Yeah.
And so it's, I spend an hour looking that up instead of, 2 days programming it. So anyway, so that's what I've been doing. I've not been sleeping. I've been coding. I mean, that's the other thing is that I forgot how much I love to code. I am having so much fun building this too. I have to keep telling myself, you know, I don't need that right now. I just need this to work so that I can do this.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, you know, so I just make a note. Oh, this would be cool. That would be cool. That would be helpful. Oh, maybe this someday. But yeah.
Nice.
Yep. So yeah, it's just funny to me too, because I think eventually I'm going to wind up building in some stuff that does what Signal Leaf did.
Probably.
So, but I'm also tempted, you know, after I get the podcast piece figured out, is also work out like website advertising, right? Because I have a few places where I could put banners that aren't directly tied to podcast episodes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I could just work that in here and then say, okay, you know, pull the sidebar or pull a random sidebar or something like that out of this system, and it would just do it.
So I'm working on something interesting that might be relevant to you. That. So I've been experimenting a lot with trying to promote Plural Sight. So my first cut at it was Plural Sight has their basic offer is like we have 5,000 courses.
Mhm.
You can get a 10-day free trial. Go here. So I put up some banner ads on our site. Stuck an offer in the navigation,
Mm-hmm.
and have also put ads in the email newsletter that goes out on Friday. And basically, it was crickets. We actually did end up getting, so we got several hundred clicks from the banner ads and stuff, and no conversions. So I was kind of frustrated with that. So what I realized this morning, though, is that Plural Sight, well, okay, so then part of the problem, so most of our traffic we're sending to John's page. That actually seems to be working the best. So John has an author page that has a list of all of his Plural Sight courses.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. Well, it's a terrible page. It could be a really good page, but Plural Sight hasn't, like, they made it very, like, there's no call to action. There's no, like, John's big photo. Like, if they took the time to actually make it's called a co-branded landing page, where it was like really showcasing John, that would convert a lot better, I think.
Oh yeah.
But they're not. So like I've talked to them about it, and they haven't. They're like, yeah, we could do that, and then he's like, but it's going to take a lot of development work. I'm like, God, you're like, you could get lead pages and have this up in an hour. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, it's not that simple. And I'm like, yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
I was tempted to do it myself on our site, and I still might, but so
I was about
yes.
to ask you why you didn't do that.
Yeah, I could. But so the part of the problem, though, is that page is just like a big list of courses. Also, some of the courses are starting to get kind of old. Like, I'd like to promote the iOS course, but it's iOS 7 and iOS 11 just came out, right? So it's going to be, people are going to be less interested. But since Pluralsight has all these courses, I can pick. There's some of John's courses are like evergreen and they're still really popular.
Right.
Like the Java course seems to still do well for us. There's a job interviewing course that looks like it does pretty well. So I'm picking out the evergreen ones, and then I can just take whatever their latest most popular C# course is and make an ad for that, and then show it. We have blog posts that are all tagged, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to show contextually appropriate, like anything tagged C#. I'm going to have like an in post ad for Pluralsight C# course versus just like, you know, throwing up the.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm basically doing targeted. So I'm promoting individual courses. Like Pluralsight is hard to promote.
I should do that on JavaScript Jabber too.
Yeah, nobody cares. Yes, exactly. Nobody cares. And the way I'm promoting it is, get this course free when you try Pluralsight for 10 days, because they give you 2 hours of free video, so you can pretty much go through the majority of the courses in like around 2 hours. So you can like basically get that particular course for free with your trial.
Right.
So that's how I'm promoting it, and so it's more specific and targeted. And so I know on our email list that like .NET, C#, Java, and JavaScript are like kind of the biggies.
Right.
And SQL actually are like the biggest languages. So I'm gonna promote those courses to the email list. Today I hadn't had any I hadn't had very good conversions with the ad that I was running in the newsletter before, which was just basically, sign up, get access to 5,000 training courses. So today I swapped it out for like a very short ad that was promoting John's job interviewing course, and we already got one conversion out of that.
Right.
So yeah, it's converting at like 1.32%. So I'm thinking we'll actually probably make 2 or 3 conversions out of that versus like 0 to 1 before.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this, and I'm thinking that like we could actually, so Plural Sight for us is going to be, I don't know, I'm thinking this month is going to be like 3,000 or 4,000, and then it could potentially end up being like a 10K revenue source for us if we dial this in right. And John, we can do this on YouTube too. We could have like 10 ads that promote different courses on Plural Sight, and then whichever one is most appropriate, Rodrigo could drop that in.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'd have the targeted, we'd have that targeting. So that's just so critical. Like the match, matching the message to where they actually are what they're actually thinking about at the moment is pretty important. So, but yeah, Chuck, you could do something similar.
Yeah, I totally could. It wouldn't be that hard. And, I would probably either have to do it myself or hire somebody to go back through and do it. I'm also wondering if I could just like go on Twitter or something and basically say, look, I'll do an hour call with you if you will go do this work for me. Or something like that, right? And I'll talk to you about podcasting or your career or finding a job or whatever, right? But I need somebody with just enough context to look at it and go, oh, okay, here's the course we're going to put on this. But I could do that with JavaScript Jabber. I could do it with Adventures in Angular. I could do it with React Native Radio. And I could probably do it with iFreaks. They don't have a whole lot of Ruby content, so I don't know how much I could do that with Ruby Rogues. But I could still, on the episodes where we talk about JavaScript related stuff, we could totally do that there too.
Yep.
And I like having the idea of having kind of that targeted ad, right? This is what this episode's about. Obviously, that's why you're here. So here's more content.
Yep. So yeah, so we'll see how it works long term. But I'm really encouraged by this so far, and I'm gonna go. If this works, I'm gonna go pick like probably 5 different technologies and try the contextual like in post ads, and then we've got My Tech Interviews is the other site that we have, and that we could definitely stick that the interviewing course up there, and I think it would actually have a pretty good shot at working. So
yeah, we had like 4 Plural Sight sales today already. So
yeah,
nice,
pretty good.
It's kind of insane. I don't know. So I went through. We have like 75 Plural Sight links in PrettyLink, and I went through and I updated all of them so they have this. They call it an AF track value. It's like it's just a code you can stick in as a tracking code, like an affiliate tracking code.
Right.
So I went through and I fixed all of them so I know where, like, I at least know what they bought, and usually I know also what they clicked. But for today we have eight hits from none, and we got 2 sales out of that. It's driving me crazy. Like, where did those come from? But I think they were all. I'm betting anything they were some of the specialized courses that we were promoting that only get a few hits, but they're super specific, so they convert better.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Should we do?
I have one more thing I need to bring up real quick.
Okay. We've got a meeting at 1, John and I
okay.
do, so.
All right. Well, we can talk about it later. Ruby Dev Summit. It's in 2 weeks. I started promoting it on Wednesday, and I currently have more attendees registered over a week out. than I did at the beginning of Angular Dev Summit when I started the first talk.
Oh, nice.
Oh wow, nice.
And I had 8 people buy tickets yesterday, like the paid tickets, and it looks like I'm probably going to have a number of them buy them today too. So
Sweet.
Anyway, I'm pretty happy about that too.
That's good. That's one of those cumulative things that every year it'll get bigger.
Yep, I think so. Well, and I got some big names coming, so I got Matt's and I got Uncle Bob and I got a bunch of people that people know from the Ruby community, so it should be pretty darn good.
Uncle Bob's not blackballed from.
No, because he's going to come give a great talk, regardless of what his political stance is. And to be honest, I haven't been paying that close of attention, but I agree with pretty much everything I've seen him say. So
he's I don't know if you saw, he's had a blog post, and at the very top of the blog post, he linked to my YouTube video on the Douglas Crockford incident.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was funny. So,
all right, well, let's do talks. Let's do thoughts, so you guys can get to your meeting.
I'll go with, so for this may just be me. The times when I fall into despair is when I don't have a plan.
Yeah.
I was like on Wednesday, I was ready to pack it all in. I was just really discouraged because like our sales, the last basically the latter part of September and the last couple of weeks have been pretty lousy. We had the thing with the book getting taken down. Our book sales have been kind of sputtering and coughing, and I was just really, really discouraged this week. And I've been doing, I've been trying a bunch of things and nothing seems to be working. And I just felt like the ground had been pulled out from underneath me kind of. And I didn't have, basically, I will get stuck in that place until I have a plan for what I'm going to do next. And Wednesday, I was digging for that plan. It just wasn't coming. But as soon as I hit that, it starts to click, and I'm like, okay, I see, I can try this, I can try that. This Plural Sight thing came to me to try, because I was frustrated about that, because I was sending emails, to send an email to 55,000 people and have nothing happen is extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
And so, so I was, but starting to figure out, okay, here's how I can take this up a level. For me, that is that's really what I need to get out of that place. And if I don't, no amount of happy talk is going to get me there. I need to have a solid, I need to have some steps that I know that I can take that has a pretty decent chance of, I need to know what I can do different to get different results. So that's my thought. You need that plan. If you're analytical, if you're wired like me, I think that's really critical.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of piggyback on that a little bit, because, you kind of talked about doing something different. And I just finished Secrets in the Millionaire Mind again. And one of the things he talks about, and he quotes somebody else, and I don't remember who it is, but he basically says, if you keep doing what you're doing, then you're going to keep getting what you're getting.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because, I'm talking about this app that I'm building, and, my solution before this was to do more of what I was doing so that I could make more money, right?
Right.
And I was just getting more of what I was getting, which was frustrated and tired and worn out, and and anyway, and so just doing this a little bit different, just finding a way to kind of encapsulate all of this stuff and do something different, do something that's the payoff, right? I am going to get something different. And it's probably going to be a fairly large investment of time over the next week. I'm hoping to have something that I can actually send people to Monday or Tuesday next week, but I'm going to be tweaking it and fiddling with it and, inputting data into it and all this stuff, over that week, and updating it and making it easier to use. But, then I'm going to get a different result because I did something different. I made a lot of things a lot easier, a lot of things automatic. And so I expect that, rather than acting out the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. I'm doing something different and expecting different results. So we'll see how this goes. I'm sure that there are going to be different things in this approach that I need to tweak, but I just need to keep in mind, the kind of experimentation and just kind of figure that out. But yeah, if you're not happy with what you're getting, change what you're doing.
Yep. Let's see. For mine, I think I would say that you're kind of around limiting beliefs is that like you kind of go through this phase like you don't until you see what's possible, you think it's impossible. So you start off with it's impossible to it's possible to it's easy, right? It becomes the thing becomes a new normal. And as a friend of mine that I had met up with in Vegas, there was a particular topic we were talking about, and I was just like, yeah, I don't think so. This doesn't, make sense. And, you have that disbelief or that skepticism, and then you see it happen. And then you're like, oh, well, I didn't think that was possible. And then, and then you believe that it could be possible. And that's the key step, is believing that something's possible. And then you do it. And then once you do it, then it becomes easy. Then it's like this thing that was impossible, all of a sudden now it went from impossible to possible to easy and to normal. And I think about a lot of things in my life and that are currently in that easy phase where other people look at it and they're like, that's impossible. In fact, they're like, that's not even happening. They're skeptical. They don't believe it. And so it just it's, when you have that kind of skepticism, maybe it's sometimes good to just say, okay, show me, let me see how this works. And then, and then you can get to that point. And so there's so many things that you think are impossible. They're not really impossible. They're just, you just haven't seen it. You just fail to believe it. And because you have failed to believe it, you can't conceptualize it. So.
Yep. Well, and it's funny too, because this goes back, I've been listening to this book. This is like my 4th time through it. Your inner world creates your outer world. And we've talked through that a million times, but yeah, that's part of that is your belief system. And if you can't go there mentally, you probably can't go there.
Yep, exactly.
Alrighty.
Well, I will talk to you guys next week. I may ask you guys to have a look at this as I get it together and give me some feedback. So
sure.
All right.
Happy coding.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.
Wanna start a business, but you just know how to code. Listen to John, Josh, and Derrick as we figure it out. We are the EntreProgrammers, and we'll teach you straight up to be developers.